Do you happen to call yourself a fan of the future of horror, aka Clive Barker, and add to this, his most famous creation? Well, you've come to the right place then. The Hellraiser franchise, as we all know, tends to be a string of horror novellas, movies, and comics all created by Barker, with the character of Kirsty Cotton serving as the protagonist, and the nightmarish Pinhead as the iconic antagonist. Well, it is only fair to say that the character of Kirsty goes through several significant changes, all throughout the series. We have not only seen her as a victim, but also as someone who is highly empowered. Speaking of today's video, while the highlight continues to remain on the character of Kirsty Cotton as the new Pinhead, we will be exploring the origins of the character of Cordelia Wolf. For those of you wondering who exactly is Cordelia Wolf, well, she becomes a Cenobite, or should we say she is made into one after Kirsty Cotton takes up the role of the Hell Priestess. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video then. But before we go into our explanation, we do have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now let's begin. Who is Cordelia Wolf? How does she become a Cenobite? To get a proper understanding of the character of Cordelia Wolf, we will be exploring all the 4 chapters of Clive Barker's Hellraiser, The Road Below comic book, one that is pinned down by Brandon Seifert, illustrated by Hammy Jang, and boasts cover art by Tim Bradstreet. Set in the Hellraiser universe, the comic delves into the rich lore, the Cenobite realm, and the psychological as well as emotional depths of the characters, all whilst offering a new perspective on the Cenobites and, of course, the results of seeking forbidden pleasures. But before we get into exploring all the 4 chapters, please note that the storyline is split into 2 time frames, the present within the depths of hell and the past in New Orleans, and the narrative keeps moving to and fro within the 2 timelines. Also, so that we are on the same page, it is important on your part to know that by now, Kirsty Cotton has already sacrificed herself in order to save her friends and family, and she has taken over the notorious mantle that's inhabited by Captain Elliot Spencer, or in simpler words, she has become the new Hell Priestess. Chapter 1. Is it the end or the beginning? Kirsty is seen relating her story to the female Cenobite, and from Kirsty's conversation, it becomes rather clear that there is a lot of awkwardness and add to this, major confusion, about what needs to be done on her part as the new Pinhead. It is literally like Kirsty is on the first day of the new job, but she seems sort of determined to carry out Hell's work, and at the same time not say or do things like her predecessor. After all, she comes with good intentions, and there's no denying that. Anyway, as per the story, the timeline shifts, and we as the readers find ourselves in the past in New Orleans. A woman named Rhea Wolf is seen employed at an antique occult shop. Otto Anderek, the shop's owner, seems to be highly impressed with Rhea and tells her that her retail skills give her the advantage of selling ice cream, even to the ones who are lactose intolerant. Sometime later, Rhea's teenage daughter Cordelia shows up at the shop, only to be on the receiving end of a repetitive lecture from her angry mother. Thanks to the intervention of a certain customer, the lecture is cut short, and Cordelia is asked to go wait in the back and not touch anything there. The rebellious Cordelia does just the opposite. She goes in the back and literally touches everything there at her disposal, while mumbling that she is touching things concurrently. Cordelia eventually finds a shelf on top of which lies the Le Marchand puzzle box, and just when she is about to touch it, Rhea holds her by her hand and tells her not to. Cordelia is taken aback and asks her mother what is the big deal. Rhea tells her that everything belonging there is an antique and she should not be touching things around, with Rhea further citing to Cordelia that New Orleans is a dangerous city. Cordelia retorts that her mother had said the same thing about New York, San Francisco, and even Portland. Before angrily leaving the shop, Rhea comes back to attend to the customer and apologizes to him for her daughter's erratic behavior. The customer, who happens to be this mysterious-looking man donning a pair of shades, hat, and a trench coat, tells her that it is absolutely fine and that one does not really get to pick their families. Please know that while the man is making a conversation with Rhea, he is seen discreetly sending a few pictures of Rhea and Cordelia to someone on his phone. The man, who happens to be a neithercoat, seems ominously happy to have found the mother-daughter duo. Anyway, we move on with the storyline and find Rhea later visiting her husband's grave, where she is further startled to find the same customer from the shop there. Rhea warns him by telling him that he does not have the slightest idea who he is messing around with, to which the man displays to her his demonic appearance and tells her that he knows exactly who he is dealing with. Rhea is surprised to learn that the man even knows his name, with the latter introducing himself as Joseph Neithercoat and further stating to Rhea that Maureen was his wife. Rhea realizes that her long-buried past is finally caught up with her. It is in the next couple of comic panels that the audience learns that the Wolves have had a blood feud with the Neithercoats for a very long time now, and none of the parties happen to be completely human, with Rhea cutting off the arm of Joseph with a knife that she possessed. Joseph mocks at her, asking her if that is how she had killed his wife. We find the chopped arm dropping on the ground only to witness Joseph regenerating a brand new one. Joseph points out to Rhea that he is not as delicate as his wife was, and that he happens to be a whole different animal. With Joseph advancing towards Rhea, she tells him that she is done with the family feud and addresses the whole thing as ridiculous. However, Joseph does not seem to be on the page and points out to Rhea that things certainly will not be working according to her terms. Anyway, with him eventually pointing out that his family knows about Wolf's living daughter and that they aim to exterminate Cordeal right in front of Rhea, Joseph ends up earning the wrath of Rhea, who unleashes a powerful energy blast at him. Rhea tells Joseph to stay away from her daughter, otherwise she will kill him, but Joseph is clearly not the one to give up so easily. So much so that he even taunts Rhea and calls her attack a mere parlor trick. Joseph tells Rhea that even if she does manage to kill him, his family will come after her daughter, and that the wolf line will end that very night. How Rhea manages to survive her encounter with Joseph isn't stated in the comics, but it becomes crystal clear when the next comic panel has her running back to the shop as fast as she can, and going to the extent of summoning a demon, and in this case Kirsty Cotton, via the Lamar Shawn puzzle box, in order to end the decades-long blood feud between the two families. Now, before we head further into the story, here's a quick recap. For those of you new to the Hellraiser franchise, the puzzle box basically serves itself as a portal to the Cenobite realm, and the solving of the puzzle box leads to the arrival of the Cenobites. Moving on with the storyline, Rhea is surprised to find Kirsty in front of her. Truth be told, she was expecting someone with horns and definitely not someone with pins. As Kirsty bombards Rhea with questions, the latter tells her that she wishes to sell her soul and that there are people she wants to be killed. Rhea mentions that she wants a family to be killed and binds Kirsty to her will to talk about the terms and conditions. Chapter 1 ends with Kirsty seemingly agreeing with Rhea. Chapter 2, trapped in the middle of a deadly family feud. Chapter 2 begins with Kirsty Cotton continuing her story of the female Cenobite in hell. Kirsty states how she felt trapped in Rhea's magic circle, with the female Cenobite telling Kirsty that what she found herself stuck in was Rhea's binding glyph. Kirsty tells her that what followed next was the real problem. We find ourselves back in the past with Rhea explaining to Kirsty about the Neithercoat family and how she wants all of them dead. Kirsty declines to make a deal with Rhea, telling her that she is never going to make any deal with her, and that while it is true that she works for hell, it is just a job at the end of the day. With Kirsty further explaining herself to Rhea, telling her that she is not evil, Rhea scoffs at her and tells her that demons aren't exactly known for their honesty. Kirsty retaliates by telling Rhea that she is going to enjoy dragging Rhea to hell, with Rhea stating to Kirsty that she is in no position to take anybody anywhere for that matter. Kirsty starts breaking the binding spell. What Rhea begins to perform is the Ritual Romanum, which is basically exorcism in layman's terms. Kirsty derides Rhea and the latter casts a spell on her and runs away from the room. But does that stop Kirsty? Of course, you know the answer, and we find her going after Rhea. This is also around the same time that Cordeal is trying to call her mother, who of course happens to be in no position to pick up the phone. Cordeal is seen leaving her home and cycling her way to the shop, unaware that Joseph is already trailing her. The next sequence has Kirsty having incapacitated Rhea with her flowy white robes and scarves and asking her why she wants the Neithercoat family dead. Rhea is in no mood to answer Kirsty and starts hurling abuses at her, post which she tells Kirsty about Cordeal. No wonder, Rhea is hell-bent on not letting Kirsty take her anywhere, and therefore casts another powerful spell on her. The charm is supreme enough to even have Kirsty taken aback, and with Kirsty asking Rhea where she learned such a powerful spell, Rhea tells her that it isn't just a spell, it is her birthright. Rhea launches another attack on Kirsty that has one of Kirsty's pins torn apart from her face. The effect is brutal, even for Kirsty, and she is seen screaming in agony. Rhea, taking advantage of the situation, teases Kirsty and tells her to imagine the pain it would cause her if she pulled out all her pins, and even gives her a demo. This causes unbearable pain to Kirsty, but she manages to cover Rhea's eyes first, resorting to her robes. What Kirsty thought would tame Rhea angers the latter even further, and she is about to unleash another blast when Kirsty covers Rhea's mouth too, making her fall on the ground. While Kirsty would love nothing more than to suffocate Rhea, she says to her, that she isn't a murderer and that the punishment that Rhea has earned is far worse than death. However, as Kirsty starts dragging Rhea to hell with her, Cordeal arrives. Stunned to witness whatever is occurring before her, Cordeal attempts to rescue her mother. Kirsty almost feels sorry to drag Rhea to hell in front of the latter's daughter, but the job has to be done. As Cordeal tells her mother to grab her hand, Rhea lets out a final burst of energy that pushes her daughter back towards the room, and the portal gets shut before Cordeal's eyes, much to the latter's horror. Chapter 2 ends with Cordeal staring blankly at the walls, utterly distraught by whatever she has witnessed. Chapter 3. Everything is fair in war. By now, it should be clear to you that Kirsty has been narrating the entire events of New Orleans to the female Cenobite all this while. Kirsty tells the female Cenobite how she has already messed things up, to which the latter disagrees and calls her diligent. Next, we as the audience find Rhea in her own custom-tailored hell, and Kirsty tells her to make herself at home before leaving from there. As Rhea starts pounding on the door telling Kirsty to let her out from there, a small door opens up behind her. Well, technically speaking, it isn't exactly a door, and Rhea finds out soon enough that what she happens to be inside is an enormous mortuary. As if that wasn't enough, countless rows of mortuary trays start stretching out all by themselves, each hosting Cordeal's lifeless, mutilated corpse, back on Earth or New Orleans to be more precise. Cordeal is seen rushing towards Otto and telling him how this woman with pins in her face made the walls open up and dragged her mother into the walls. A disbelieving Otto thinks Cordeal is tripping and blames her for getting high and destroying his store. Cordeal flees from there and stops by an abandoned park to cry out. Joseph finds his way to Cordeal, calls her by her name, and asks her about Rhea. This stuns Cordeal, and upon getting a closer look at Joseph's attire, she recognizes him as the customer from the store earlier, with Joseph telling Cordeal that he knew his father, and he was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Cordeal attacks Joseph with a pepper spray. Joseph attempts to assure Cordeal that he is just there to talk to her and make her understand what Rhea did to his family. He tells her how both the families had a mutual protection treaty before the blood feud took place, and reveals his nightmarish self to Cordeal. This sight of Joseph has Cordeal exceedingly frightened, but Joseph elucidates to her that while her kind are dreams come true, his are living nightmares, and they both are basically the same. Cordeal attempts to run away from the demonic-looking Neithercoat, but the latter appears right in front of her, blocking her way. Oblivious to her powers, Cordeal lets out a powerful blast of energy just like her mother, shocking Joseph further. That's not all. She also gets mind melded to Joseph, and it is through this that we as the audience finally learn how the blood feud between the two families started back in the 1980s. Both families of the Wolfs and Neithercoats had been living in seclusion for decades, only to be forced into the lands of those who tried to wipe them out. No points for guessing the enemy here, who happens to be the very humans. Call it cosmic coincidence. Both the families in due course found their way to each other as outsiders and came to a mutual decision to always have each other's backs. We get a look at Joseph's wife, Maureen, who was seen rushing to her husband with blood all over her. Maureen tells Joseph that she had Ivan Wolf's blood all over her, about how he double-crossed and was going to turn them over to the humans, and so she was left with no other choice but to stop him before he could do so. To those of you wondering, who is Ivan Wolf? Well, he happens to be Rhea's husband, in case you didn't see that coming. Anyway, Joseph calms down Maureen and asks her to get some sleep. Sometime later, Joseph hears a noise coming from inside their bedroom, only to find Rhea having brutally decapitated Maureen. She calls it her revenge and leaves a grieving Joseph all by himself, clinging on to the lifeless body of his wife. The next scene shifts back to the desolate park where Cordeal and Joseph have been. Joseph, by then, has already changed his mind and plans to kill Cordeal right away, rather than wait to do it in front of Rhea. He is about to strike at her when Otto intervenes, them having followed Cordeal. He holds up a gun and asks Joseph to let Cordeal go. Joseph turns around only to get shot by Otto. Surprisingly, he doesn't harm Otto. He leaves the duo, but not before asking Cordeal to find her mother, as he has a pending appointment with her to take care of. Cordeal goes back to the store with Otto and tells him that he has to help her in rescuing her mother from hell. She asks Otto for the Le Marchand puzzle box, and it becomes evident who she plans on summoning. Joseph, on the other hand, observes the duo from outside and meets up with the remaining members of his kin, while his family members decide which body parts of their prey to relish on. Kirsty makes another appearance only to get trapped in the glyph of the Solutant, with Kirsty asking Cordeal if she is going to make a deal with her just like her mother did. Cordeal tells her to bring her mother back to her right away or she will kill her. Chapter 4. The Bloody Finale. The female Cenobite points out to Kirsty that even with her being the Cenobite queen, she has made mistakes, which has eventually led her to being caught in the same trap not once, but twice. Kirsty blames it on the summoning circle, further stating that she did not have a choice, and carries on with the retelling of her story. Cordeal, as the angry, superpowered teenager, continues to hurl powerful energy blasts at Kirsty, but the latter manages to break free. Otto attempts to run away from there, only to have Kirsty catch hold of him, using her robes and scarves against him. She also ties up Kirsty, and with her deciding what to do with the duo, Otto shoots at Kirsty using his gun. This was Kirsty restraining him with the scarves, only to have her inadvertently kill Otto, snapping his neck in the process. Cordeal screams in terror and accuses Kirsty of killing him post, which she ends up attacking her once again. Kirsty attempts to explain herself to Cordeal, and when that does not work out in her favor, she has Cordeal suspended upside down and stands behind her. Next, she is seen apologizing about Otto, and at the same time telling her how Rhea deserved what she got, since she summoned her in order to kill a family, with Cordeal telepathically linking her mind with Kirsty and showing her memories, the ones she came by naturally and the ones she got secondhand from her attacker. Did Kirsty realize how wrong she has been the whole time? With the hopes of salvaging the mess she has made, Kirsty decides to take things into her own hands, even if that meant making up her own rules. Kirsty asks Cordeal if she wants a job, much to the latter's shock. Kirsty states to the teenager that since she solved the puzzle and opened the gates of hell, it's her choice if she wants to go through it as a prisoner or as a jailer. According to Kirsty, hell exists so as to punish the guilty, and that one only ends up there if that person deserves to. Kirsty firmly believes that hell isn't evil, and that it only brings order to the universe. She also states to Cordeal how she along with her friends are attempting to change things, and that hell requires servants who see punishing as a job, and not as an inquisition. Of course, the whole thing seems to Cordeal like a career day speech, and that's precisely when Kirsty agrees to bring Rhea back from hell, with the condition that Cordeal joins her. She also shows Cordeal the bigger picture, how she will need more power to keep the Neithercoats from killing her and her mother. Cordeal gives her consent, and Kirsty releases her from her bonds, after which the latter takes the young girl to hell to be remade in the transformation chamber. The next comic panel has the readers taken back to Rhea, who learns from Kirsty that she has been paroled. Rhea, unaware of the things that have happened, looks around to find a shadowy figure and realizes that the new Cenobite happens to be no one else but her very daughter, Cordeal, as the new Cenobite is shown to possess what looks like tentacles instead of her fingers. And let's not disregard that shiny bald head. Of course, one never gets to see the transformation, but it becomes quite clear that Cordeal had her neck and shoulders ripped as well as her stomach cut open. Rhea is horrified to look at her daughter, but Cordeal seems to be enjoying her transformation. She tells her mother that she finally got a job after all, further stating that Kirsty made her better, gave her a purpose, and that everything makes more sense with hell there. With Rhea not showing her daughter the gratitude that she expected out of her, Cordeal tells her mother that she did things at the end of the day for her in order to protect her. Their conversation gets interrupted by the intervention of the Neithercoats, and with Joseph openly stating that he brought along some friends too to finish off the wolves, it dawns upon Kirsty how badly she had messed things up. Rhea steps in front of her daughter, telling the Neithercoats that they have to get through her first, but this only has Cordeal pushing her mother to the side, telling her not to embarrass her, addressing the whole situation as a family affair. Cordeal also advises Kirsty to stay out of the whole thing, resorting to her new Cenobite powers, and in this case swinging her white robes and scarves just like Kirsty had done earlier. Cordeal effortlessly ends up decapitating most of them, leaving Joseph for the last. Next, she is seen chopping off all the limbs of Joseph, severing his head, and casually tossing it away, thereby shocking both Rhea as well as Kirsty with her violent demeanor. As Cordeal prepares to leave with Kirsty, she decides to take the puzzle box along with her. She bids her mother goodbye and tells her to have a nice life. The next panel shows Kirsty finally done recounting her story to the female Cenobite, and the latter asks her how does it feel to be a victimizer for once. The female Cenobite also tells Kirsty that they are simply servants of justice and order. Chapter 4 ends with Rhea paying a visit to the cemetery, where she encounters Harry D'Amour, who offers to provide her with weapons to have her get her revenge on hell. Marvelous verdict. If you ask us, we really love the whole idea of how the road below sheds light on the Cenobites, giving them a fresh spin as liberators, and not just tormentors. Hammy Jang's illustration certainly deserves special mention, having captured the otherworldly Cenobite realm to perfection. The comic also remains true to Barker's vision and style, thereby maintaining the theme and tone of the overall Hellraiser franchise. It is only fair to categorize this as a compelling addition to the rich Hellraiser lore. Well, that is all for today, and with this, we finally come to the end of our video here. So, what do you think of Cordeal Wolf's origin story? Do you fancy Cordeal more as the Cenobite? We would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Now, If you enjoyed this video, then please do leave a thumbs up. Also, stay tuned with us as we promise to come back with more exciting content. Till then, goodbye, and thanks for watching. Have a nice one.